Did you ever just want to punch your fantasy team in the mouth? Yeah, I do too. You look at last week. My team scored 1 touchdown. 1. 9 players. 1 touchdown. Actually, you know what? They scored 2. But then 1 was called back because he fumbled on the goal line. So instead of getting 7 or 8 points, got -2. And that's how my week went. So yes, there are some weeks you just want to punch your fantasy team right in the mouth. And I had one of those weeks. Matter of fact, my week was so bad, I actually started rooting for my real football team, the Minnesota Vikings. They're better to watch than my fantasy football team. Matter of fact, I look forward to the Vikings playing more than my fantasy football team playing. If you told me at the beginning of the year that one of your teams, either your fantasy team or your Vikings, would be 3-0 and the other would be 1-2, I would say, well, shoot. We lost our starting quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater. We lost our running back in Adrian Peterson. So certainly my Vikings would be 1-2 and my fantasy team would be 3-0, but I would be wrong. So I have my Ohio State Buckeyes and I have my Minnesota Vikings, who are both 3-0. So that's something salvageable about my football team or my football year. So I've employed the Seinfeld therapy of Serenity Now. Serenity Now is something that you mutter to yourself, you whisper to yourself. And then after a while you begin yelling it at yourself or even yelling it at other people to make yourself feel better. So Serenity Now, Serenity Now. That's the theme of my fantasy football year. Fantasy football. Well, let's take a look back, shall we? Last week was kind of a weird week in fantasy, so I want to go over some of the matchups that we had, starting with my matchup with I played Michael's Tiger team. I only got beat by 78 points, which is horrible. Not the worst beat of the year, though. Michael's team scored a lot more points than mine did. As a matter of fact, my team scored so few points that I thought the screen was frozen. But then I'd see Michael's team score points, and mine would barely move. So I got beat pretty soundly. So we are both sitting at 1-2. We had the other matchup with Bob's Boys against the Steeler Nation, and that was another beating where Bob beat Mike's Steelers by 125 points. That was the worst beating of the week. And so, Bob, you are like me, you're 1-2, and Mike, it's your first loss of the season, so you're 2-1. Then we had the Silver Bullets and Houday Nation, Ken's team against John's, and that was the closest one of the week with only 9 points. And normally that would be a good victory, even a pretty resounding victory. But this week it was the closest victory. And so both you guys are 2-1 as you come into this week. And then we had Team Dietrich scoring 240 points and going against the Browns. And Team Dietrich outscored the Browns 240-180. And that was probably the most points I've ever seen scored by a fantasy team. So congratulations, Team Dietrich. Rick, I'm sorry you lost again. You're 0-3. Tim and Michelle, you're 2-1. And then lastly, we had Tony's Chance going against Luck, Don't Be a Lady, formerly known as the Holy Garoppolos. And that was a 30-point victory by Luck, Don't Be a Lady. And now, so Rob, you're 3-0. You lead the league, number 1 team. Tony, like Bob and me and Michael, you are 1-2. So we're bringing up the rear, but we can recover this week, of course. And Rob, I like your team name, Luck Don't Be a Lady. People often change their names in the middle of the year based upon certain things. I was thinking about naming my team Serenity Now, but I'm a superstitious guy, so I'm sticking with Monkey Punch. But let's take a look ahead to week 4. And that's coming up, starting tonight actually, with the Bengals and the Dolphins. So that's going to be a great game. So we have Monkey Punch, my team, going against John's, the Houday Nation. And this really comes down to 2 players for me. John, you have Michael Floyd, starting wide receiver for Arizona. He's coming off concussion protocol. I'm not sure if he's going to play a whole bunch, and if he does, he should be okay. But if he doesn't, sometimes they ease people in. That might be a challenge. As well, I have Willie Snead, who has turf toe, and he didn't play last week, and so he might be iffy as well. So we might have a real tight battle, and it might come down to which of those two guys will really end up playing. I'm giving myself a slight nod in this one just because I'm stupid. Then we have number 2 matchup. We have Michael's Tiger team beat me last week playing the Steelers. And this is the week where Jamal Charles comes back for you, Michael. And again, they have great backups in Spencer Ware and Shakendrick West. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they eased Jamal Charles back into this. But again, good news for you that he is starting, because he's certainly going to be a great player when he gets going. And then, Mike, you had to replace D'Angelo Williams with T.J. Yeldon. Good move there. You benefited greatly from D'Angelo taking Le'Veon Bell's place. Did really well with that move. And so if Yeldon shows up for you, you should be pretty good. I'm giving the nod, though, this week to Michael's Tiger team. And then we have the boys going against Tony's Chance. Now, let me see, Bob and Tony, you've probably known each other for the better part of 35, 36 years now or more. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of trash talking going on. Tony, you got Gronkowski. Looks to be pretty healthy right now. I think he's matchup proof. No matter who the quarterback is, I could quarterback and still you would do well with Gronkowski. I think your flex play of Matt Forte is really solid. And Forte's been really good. He's really had some, he's bounced back. Not being on the Bears helps. Bob, you have Devontae Freeman, who's splitting time with Tevin Coleman. Last week, that wasn't a problem. Scored 40 points with Devontae Freeman. But as they are home this week against Carolina, and if they split time, I think Freeman's going to take a little bit of a hit. But, it's still going to be a good call, good play. And then you picked up Terrell Pryor. As an Ohio State guy, that was near and dear to my heart. It's a gutsy call. He's been doing well for Cleveland, so we'll see how that plays out. I give the slight nod to Bob's team this week in that matchup. And then we have the Silver Bullets, Ken's team, playing Pastor Rick's team, the Go Browns. Now here's the thing. Pastor Rick has Le'Veon Bell starting this week, and he's actually going to start, so that's a good thing. But he has Aaron Rodgers in the starting quarterback position. Aaron Rodgers will not be starting this week. But Pastor Rick's in the Philippines. I think it's next Thursday there. So I think they've already played, so Ken, you should be okay. But you have to plug some holes because, Ken, you have some guys on bye week. The Matthews brothers, Ryan and Jordan. If you are able to plug those holes with some viable players, I think you'll pull this victory out. So, Ken, I'm giving you the nod in this game. And the last matchup we have, Team Dietrich versus Luck Don't Be a Lady. I think this is going to be a shootout. You have Andrew Luck, Rob's quarterback, against Drew Brees. Both are on the road. Brees doesn't do as well on the road, but no one does as well on the road. And Michelle and Tim, you have 2 running backs that are playing on the road. You have 2 wide receivers playing on the road. But here's the thing, Rob, every single person on your team, other than Brandon Marshall, on the road this week. And Brandon Marshall is playing at home against Seattle. It's going to be a tough matchup. So based upon that, I give a slight nod to Michelle. Now, what are these picks worth? Nothing. Although last week I was 4-1, and the only one I lost was me. So I'd rather have the win and be 1-4, but it is what it is. Now, don't forget to set your lineups, pick the winners, who you think might win. And don't forget, you have to do that before tonight's game when we have the the Bengals playing the Dolphins. Serenity now.